Yeah, hi, good morning, Kelvin MacKenzie here. Coming up in a second, interesting guest, Charles Moore. Charles Moore, sensational kind of career in journalism, editor of The Telegraph, editor of The Spectator. He writes a great column for The Spectator right now. And I reached out to Charles, or Lord Charles actually, as he really is, because he wrote a good piece in The Telegraph, I thought, explaining that the death tax is totally unreasonable and that people who have the money should actually continue to pay out of the assets of their house, for instance. Well, why should you, if you're struck by an illness of some kind, it's going to cost you money as you head towards your maker. Why should this be something that the country should face? Why isn't it that you face it and actually pay out of your house or something like that? After all, that's what happens at the moment. So what's wrong with that? All it means is that your kids aren't going to get as much money as they thought they were going to get. And is that an issue? Standing on your own feet didn't cause you a problem, so why should it cause them a problem? Plus, if you have 24 grand or less, then the state takes over the obligation anyway. So you've got to say to people, you're going to have to look after yourselves, right? Well, what's wrong with that? Why don't you pay insurance or something like that? And everybody turns around and says, oh, you haven't got the money. We haven't got the money. Well, hold on a second. Perhaps if you didn't go down the betting shop, didn't go down the pub, perhaps you didn't take a couple of holidays a year, or just put some money aside. It's not impossible. I think the very poor should be dealt with, but everybody else, I'm afraid, all the time, anytime anybody puts their hand out, a politician wants to put money in it. The money's not there. It's not their money. And actually, on the Labour side, of course, the fact they make 95 grand a year, actually it's a triumph, right? It's the political party where actually becoming a politician is a promotion for them, because normally they'd be pushing a broom outside Aldi's, So I'm looking forward to this chat, and I hope he's on the line in a minute, is he? Okay, fine. I've just been told that I've got a super chat already.
Yeah.
Here comes from Simon Kilford. Simon, very grateful to me. And Simon, I asked him, because I think you are a fantastic presenter on UK Live, and you make me feel quite happy. Do you know what? I think that's fantastic. That hasn't been said that many times in my career, to be honest. And so, Simon, I'm very grateful to you. The other issues I'll be dealing with today are, one, why is London losing people? For the first time ever, the numbers are down about 440,000. Now, as Patrick Christie of GB News said, actually, I saw it on a tweet, you wouldn't have to be a genius to work it out. What seems to be happening is that they're clearly going to other parts of the country. Then they might be leaving the country. I doubt it. And so the number of people coming from other places into London continues to increase, but actually the number in the capital goes out. So there's something that's really been happening for many, many years, which is fundamentally white flight. Talking about white flight was something I raised yesterday, actually. I still feel massively irritated about it. It's this. So the Labour MP called Sarah Sackman, she covers Golders Green and Finchley. She put I thought, a most inappropriate text out yesterday. I've no idea what drove her to do this. So there's a whole load of St George's flags and Union flags around the constituency of Finchley and Golders Green. She objects to these. And she described it, used an expression I haven't seen before, written in this context, called othering. So I looked up the dictionary to find out what othering meant, and effectively what it means is that the minority object to the fact that they are treated in some way by the majority, right? Ill-defined how this all works. Now, apart from the fact that Sarah Sackman's favourite book must be Othering Heights, yeah, all right, get it? Who is being othered? How can you possibly be othered by the flag of the country that has given you protection? What kind of countries have they come from in the first place, anyway? Where there's no democracy, you're not allowed to have freedom of religion, you're very unlikely to have freedom of thought, and you come here, you get all of those things. Having had all of those things, you see a flag of the nation which has taken you in and probably giving you benefits, giving you food, giving you free accommodation, and you object to the flag. You feel threatened by it. Okay, here's my solution. And this is not going to happen either. So the solution can't happen, which is, why don't you go back to your unothered country? See what it's like out there. It's completely a preposterous thing to say. So I didn't know this, and I only know this from the reaction to the tweet. Sarah Sackman is Jewish. Loads of Jews have come in and said, this is not the position of Jews in this country. They like our flag. I like them. They make a contribution to our society. And I'm not saying that Muslims won't at some stage make a contribution, but actually it's a net deficit at the moment. And I see another 1,000 turned up yesterday on the shores of Dover. How shocking is that? 1,000 people, always the same kinds of people. Okay, we're taking them all in. And what does our Prime Minister say about all this? He says things are going in the right direction. 1,000 a day is the right direction. Yes, it's marginally down. Why was it marginally down? The weather during the winter was absolutely shocking, right? The idea that this has something to do with the Home Secretary or the passing Prime Minister. Remember him? Do you remember his name? Starmer. Preposterous, okay? They haven't done anything. 1,000 arrive, and our Prime Minister says nothing. He can give away as much money as he likes, but he doesn't deal with the significant issue which gives the minority parties, like Reform, who are going to secure our borders. That's what I want. I believe in capitalism. I'm hostile to trade unions, and all I want is a secure border. If we had a Prime Minister who delivered just that, remained enormously focused on that particular idea, right, he'd have my vote for 1,000 years. And so I often wish Reform or other parties like it, or even the Conservatives, just focused on that. Get into power, lift up the carpet, see where the problems are, and solve them when you come in. And push capitalism, control trade unionism, and secure our borders. To me, you've got my vote and people like me. Right, I'm still waiting for Charles Moore, which is a shame. But in the meantime, the Mr. Madman, the maddest man in broadcasting, and the man behind UK Live, so a significant intellect and drive. Morning, Pooch.
Morning, Kelvin. Just reflecting on what you said at the top of the show there.
Yep.
I was always brought up with the expression, when in Rome, do as the Romans would.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. We've just bought a house in France.
Right.
We've got a French flag there.
Good. I like that.
I am becoming a bit of a Francophile. I want to fit in. My French is okay. I'm by no means fluent, but I speak French all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
People appreciate it. They say, oh, you speak okay French and stuff like that. That's great. I like fitting in. If I go to a party, I don't want to create havoc, contrary to what you might think. I want to fit in.
Right.
If I join a club, if I'm in a business. Now, the thing about securing the borders, it's so funny how the Conservatives, Labour commentators, they all say, well, are Reform ready for government? What do you mean, are they ready for government? They couldn't be any worse than the shower that have been in government
Correct.
now. You and I could go into government. Nigel Farage could come into this business and run it as well as we could, because he is a businessman.
Yep.
So all of this not being ready for government is just utter tosh. It's for the birds.
I don't know whether you saw that throwaway line from Jeremy Clarkson today. Good line. He was pointing out that Angela Eagle is now in charge of rural affairs.
Yeah.
This is a woman who has never been in business and never been in farming.
Yep.
And he said it's the equivalent of Alan Carr running the army, right? Which I thought was a clever crack, except a lot of people then joined in on the debate and basically said Alan Carr would be better to run the army than West Streeting. And I wonder whether West Streeting, there's something happened to him. I think something happened to him. The first thing he does as the Secretary of State for Defence, an enormously important job, right? Okay, I can absolutely understand it. Perhaps in the 90s and the early 2000s, this was of no account, right? It was just a place that polished boots. Today, we have significant issues in which I see that the first two items on the BBC News, the audio news this morning, is one, Iran, and everybody bombing each other, both sides bombing each other, and Ukraine, where a massive onslaught by Russia, who are going nowhere. I mean, there are people being killed. It's terrible. And two children died in the bombing there. So this is massively important to us. So the government have made it clear on two things. We're going to put an adult like Wes Streeting, okay, who clearly doesn't want the job and only got the job because Rachel Reeves turned it down. What about that? I mean, how incredible is that?
Yeah.
Well, no. I see that the Mail are running a story saying that David Miliband turned down education because he was a friend of Phillipson's. So there was all kinds of stuff going on in the background, quite interesting stuff. So Wes Streeting turns up. The first thing he announces is, if I don't get the money, I'm off. Really? I cut out the middleman on that.
Yeah.
I just call him up and say, don't wait for whether you're going to get the money, mate. You're off as well.
Yep.
Because there are lots of things to be said about defence, but putting yourself as the most important part of what is going to happen to the Ministry of Defence is absurd. So lots of other people have now said, so Wes Streeting is already, for some, I don't know whether he did a good job at health or not. He did good PR. Now he doesn't want to be Secretary of State for Defence. I think he will cause nothing but trouble for Burnham, which actually I might even be in favour of.
Yeah.
But so we have a curious government now. I wonder how long it's going to hold together. Is Burnham able to flex? Has he any muscles to flex?
Well, I just want to go back to what you said about reading the tweet from Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah.
I saw another tweet. Clarkson, I reckon, has just lost 50% of his fan base on the back of what he said yesterday, and myself included. I used to be a massive fan. He can go and get stuff now.
Hold on a second.
Hold on, and I'm about to come to Piers Morgan.
Tell me what.
I'm about to come to Piers Morgan, and I'm about to come to John Cleese.
Oh.
So Clarkson said, I hope all of you lot who voted for Brexit are enjoying the holiday queues. Now, what a facile thing to say.
Yeah.
He's provoking people.
Yeah.
I don't know why he needed to do it.
Yeah.
People who voted for Brexit because they wanted secure borders, because they wanted sovereignty. They didn't want Ursula von der Leyen telling us that we have to have stupid caps on our water. So I thought that was a really odd thing to say. And then quite a few strange things have happened. John Cleese, who has been a bit kind of flip-flopping between left and right, has now come out in support of Rupert Lowe.
No.
Yes, he has, and he's come out in support of secure borders, and people are calling him a racist, and he's quite rightly pointed out that he's not a racist, he's a culturalist. I'm a culturalist. I don't care where you come from. You can be green, blue, yellow, red, black, white, whatever, but if you come to a country, just as I go to France, I fit in with their culture. I don't demand that the supermarket is open on a Sunday, which it's not, it's shut. I don't say I need the supermarket open on a Sunday because it's like that. So John Cleese's point is well made, I think. He's a culturalist.
How did he detail that? What made his movement? Where was he politically before? With Reform or the Conservatives?
No, I would say he was kind of very liberal before, almost Lib Dem. I've worked with him, by the way, and he's a very, very intelligent man. I don't
doubt that.
Yeah, no, and he's easy to work with as well. He knows what he's doing. You don't have to direct him or do anything like that. But Yeah, a few times he's come out a bit kind of lefty. He did a show on GB News called Dinosaur Hour, which I worked on, which was pretty good.
It worked, but he didn't like the backwash of it, did he?
No, he didn't. And he did not like being tarred with the same brush as the far right. By the way, the right has stood still. This is where the left used to be. The left are now far left, accusing the right of being far right, but they're where they were all along. So I think he didn't like that, but I think he's got to the point now where he thinks, you know what, I've had enough. We need secure borders. And
did he specifically say that Reform don't do it, or the Tories don't do it?
He didn't say that, but he came out in support of Rupert Lowe, and Elon Musk tweeted it and said, what a sensible chap about John Cleese. So there's something big going on there with Elon Musk's backing. But then on the back of Dr. Fauci, you know my views on COVID and all of that kind of stuff, which I think a lot of us have nowadays. I'm not being big or clever with it. I think we all come to realizations at different times. Fauci pleading the Fifth Amendment in the Senate there, not answering any questions about why he did what he did. He always said he would.
I must say, how can you plead the Fifth on an important political... Who's that there?
Charles. Oh, Charles is here. Go straight to him.
Okay, go straight. Yeah, fine. We'll come back on that. Welcome, Charles Moore. Hi, Charles.
Good morning. Can you see me, Kelvin?
I can, and a glorious sight it is as well, Charles. Okay. Now, the reason we meet is because you wrote a good piece in the Telegraph, basically chiming in, obviously, with what I thought was that actually, if you've accumulated some asset value, but the big bet in everybody's life is a house normally for ordinary people. That you should be able to take some of that money and use it against your health if it fails in later time. That's basically your argument, isn't it?
Yes, I don't think it's right to get the argument set in people's minds that it's a scandal to sell your house if you need care. It's a reasonable investment that a lot of people, though obviously not all people, can make. And when you buy a house, one of the things you need to think about is where you might end up. Doesn't mean the state can do nothing about it, but if we get this stuck in the head that the government must pay for your care and you keep your house, we get in a really mad situation in which the whole of care has been nationalised so that you can keep your house. And I think it will be very, very bad for people in care. I think it will, if it's all dumped on the state, care will get much worse.
How do you feel? This is part of a general travel by Burnham. What do you make of Burnham? You and I think actually I'm older than you, but you and I can remember the Wilson days. Do you think he is Wilson-ish, or is he further left? I noticed some spads of some junior MPs have all been given minor jobs in the government, and these people were massive leftists. I was very surprised.
Well, interesting you make the Wilson comparison, Kelvin, because it may be the right one. He may be a mixture of quite left-wing and a very astute party calculator. And so far, I think what we're seeing is sounds rather than policies, really. And they will turn into policies, but I think he's trying to appeal to different audiences at the same time. And he's trying to not repeat Starmer's mistake of losing his Labour base, and therefore he needs to make certain noises. Now, whether they go to the left in the end, whether he goes to the left in the end, I think we really don't know yet. I feel it's not very good for the country, but I also think he is being quite astute. He mustn't make those sort of clumsy errors that Starmer made.
When you look at the political arena right now, how do you see where Reform, the Tories? I mean, you've always. I mean, to give you your credit, I mean, as a former editor of the Telegraph and the Spectator, I might expect it to be like this, but you've always been a conservative in essence, right? Which is great. But did you feel yourself moving towards reform, or have you never ever really bought that and always stayed? You've been a big Kemi supporter. I do know that.
Well, I'm not a conservative with the big C. I'm conservative with the small c. So I'm always looking for where conservatism could best be advanced. And I'm glad reform came on the scene because the Tories deserved it. And there had to be new ideas, new people, new energy. But I'm skeptical about reform because I think their claim to be the natural next small c Conservative government will not be borne out, and they don't really know what to do. And their emotions are not the emotions of people who want to govern. They're the emotions of people who want to complain. And by goodness, there's a lot to complain about. So I agree with a lot of those complaints, but I'm really concerned that we should have a government that can actually know how to run the country rather than just make speeches and conquer social media.
If you could close, I know this is ridiculous, really, but we've got 3 years to go before another election. What's your general sense of where that is likely to end up? Is it definitely going to end up in a coalition of the left, which looks very dangerous to me, or is it ever possible to have a coalition of the right? Do you think?
I just think it's too early to say, Kelvin, because all these things depend on the numbers on the night, and anybody who plans exactly in advance is going to get it wrong. Right. People will make a calculation right up against the wire, who's more powerful than the other, and everything will flow from that. If you look at the polls right now, nobody in British politics is in at all a dominant position. But I think, it's a long race, and as you get towards the end of the long distance race, it'll be clearer who's pulling ahead and who's falling behind. But my own feeling is that reform has already peaked, and very difficult for them to get back. But never underestimate the Conservative Party's capacity for screwing themselves. I think Kemi's doing very well, and I am a believer in her integrity of her leadership and the skill actually too. So I think that's looking hopeful.
Okay, brilliant. I'll leave it for now. I know you have to rush. That's great. Perhaps we could speak again. I love hearing from you. I love the fact that you're still. I would urge all my viewers, few that they are, to actually read your column. It is the most interesting thing about columns is when people show their personality and are not trying to actually beg or plead. Get people to read it. I love your stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Charles.
Thanks for the compliments, Kelvin. Very welcome.
Okay. Cheers, man.
Speak
Bye-bye.
soon.
Cheers.
Bye.
That was Charles Moore. Actually, a very balanced kind of guy, right? Huge intellect, and it's always dangerous to interview somebody with a bigger intellect than yourself, which is why I like talking to you. And the madman, Mr. Madman. The truth about the matter is, Pooch shouldn't be the producer here. He should do a 1 hour show. And I hope one day you do it, because actually I can be a bit wishy-washy. And so that if there's something new and shiny comes along, I think, oh, that's a good idea. And then half an hour later, I find out that either I've lost a lot of money on it or it's a ridiculous idea and I'm a bloody idiot. Whereas you, when you have an idea, 40 years later, you still got the same idea.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So anyway, going back to, yes, I agree with you. But the point about being a columnist is actually to be like Moore, and actually about like Clarkson. You should just say what you think. Whether, yes, you'll lose people, you'll gain people, right? I've been slightly critical of where reform finds themselves right now, right? Because I want reform, or a reform-like party, to run our country, because I want secure borders. And what I don't like seeing is stuff going on which is unhelpful. But anyway, people like you are different. You have a view, and then you just stick with it, right? Now, the thing is that I've done that in business, right? And sometimes it's worked, right? But honestly, I've stayed with businesses where people literally had to take me out, shout it, and I'm gaga.
But Kelvin, I'm not like that in business.
Right.
I don't think I'm difficult to work with or for. No. I listen to everyone's ideas. Yeah. I allow people to learn very quickly and take a higher station, high level if they can. Yeah. I mean, Scarlett and Luke do an amazing job producing this show. Yeah. A month ago, they'd never even seen any of this production equipment. So
but hold on a second. You're the one who said to me that television is a place basically for idiots.
Yeah, it is, because what I'm saying is that's what's happening. You have they'd have 10 people doing this job with each idiotic person, and they're not an idiot, they're trained like idiots, pressing one button. Whereas here, if I got them to come in here, if I got someone from the BBC say, by the way, you've got to vision mix at the same time as doing the audio, at the same time putting chats, at the same time you've got to go and make tea and coffee and let the guests in, they'd have a fit.
That is true.
How
you
they're
should
not
never,
trained.
So I don't want to be unkind, but if anybody is thinking of doing this, I'm sure they're not thinking of doing it, never hire from the BBC.
No.
Okay? And actually, I had a cable TV station, and we put an ad out saying we wanted some people, and it said BBC employees needn't apply, right? At which point, they took us to court.
Really?
Yeah, some bloke took us to court saying that this is, barring the way for employment and everything. Anyway.
So how come the BBC can have DEI hires?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's
a two-way street,
It's
surely.
an issue. But outside this building, there was the most huge shout-up going on. A lady...
I was the one who... it was happening during Mike's show. I thought it was some woman from South America who Mike had fathered 7 children by them, and she wanted a bit of dough.
Yeah.
But she was... We've got a temporary Brazilian embassy near us. The woman had come in. She was shouting and kicking off.
Well, the cops are there.
Well, okay, but I got her. I took her out from there. Very nicely. I just said, I'm sorry, obrigado. And she came out with me, and the lovely security guard took her out as well.
What's up with her?
I don't know, because my Portuguese isn't great. But
she was absolutely shouting outside.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, but loads of cops turned up to calm her down.
No, I don't know. But it's... but again, that's the thing here. When we drive in, we go past Little Portugal. I said to Scarlett, there's Little Portugal there. I love it. Italian family, Italian restaurants. I love going to an Indian restaurant.
Whereabouts is that then? Where is Little Portugal then?
I'm not giving away where we are, Kelvin.
No, but is it in the area?
Yeah, it is, just down the road.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, now, you got to know it to know it.
Okay.
But, again, this is... Let me read what John Cleese said, because I think this is really interesting.
And the reason that you discovered it is because Elon Musk tweeted it. He retweeted
it came onto my feed.
Oh, does it?
But I did see
you follow Cleese,
No, but it came onto my feed. So
that means that Musk put it out then.
Yeah, it must have
fine.
done.
Okay.
So here we are. Where am I? John Cleese, and I'm looking at the Piers Morgan one. I do not want that one. And yet he was annoying as well. So
why did he annoy you?
He's now having a go at Fauci for pleading the fifth when Morgan wanted all of us to be locked down, all of us to be second-class citizens if we weren't vaccinated.
It's not right that he should plead the fifth, is it, on this issue?
It's not. That's their constitution.
So important.
You can plead the fifth on anything.
Yeah, I know.
You know, if you get stopped by the police, you have your Fourth Amendment right that you only have to show your identification if you've committed a crime, and if you haven't, they can't ask who you are, and you can plead the fifth on anything. So. Maybe that is right, but he had always. It's just showing.
Do you think with a job like his, which had such an effect on 300-400 million people, he has the right not to reveal what galvanised his thought process?
I don't think he has the right, but if he did, as they say, anything I may say will be taken. Anything you say will be taken down in evidence, and it will go to trial. I think the problem is when Biden left, Biden. Gave him a pardon. That pardon dates back to 2014.
What is he pardoned for?
For anything
that he may have done.
Back to 2014. Yeah. He had deals with Moderna, all of these kind of the nonsense that he perpetrated, and people in hazmat suits running into. I saw a video this morning of someone in a hazmat suit, 2 guys, security guys, full hazmat suits during COVID, running into the sea, taking down a woman who was surfing, who should have apparently been self-isolating. I mean, it is. You look back on it; it is the biggest crime.
Can I ask you this? I mean, I wrestle with this. If we had said, actually, it's a flu which kills,
which it was a flu,
fine, a flu which can kill, and it's likely to kill those who are unfit and older. Okay?
Which flu does, 30,000 a year. Correct.
If we had treated it just like that, I mean, it actually killed 150,000 people, didn't it, one way?
With COVID, not of COVID.
Okay, all right, with COVID. If we had said, actually, this country can't afford to stop, okay? We are skint.
400 billion we spent on it.
Yeah. Of which we didn't have fourpence of that 400 billion.
Scarlet Luke's children are going to be paying for that.
Yeah. And we all continue to pay for it right now. Right. And I never thought that Boris made enough of that, right? That in fact somebody had to fund this and this. So if we hadn't done any of that, our economy would have been better.
Yep.
Can I ask you, would, in your view, or anybody's view who wants to come on and tweet about or text about this, would we have lost more people? Would more people have died, A? And B, would that have been a price worth paying?
It's funny, Kelvin. The answer is so obvious, and no disrespect to you, but I wonder where you've been. Have you had your head buried in the sand?
No, I have not got involved in the COVID debate.
Okay, so
I thought most of the people who kept making the arguments which you made
were loonies.
Were absolutely, well, no, people I wouldn't be comfortable with. Okay. That is different because there are a lot of loonies out there, including that.
You toe the establishment line, in a way?
No, I towed the establishment line and I asked the questions, right? I didn't know what the answer was.
So what did you think? So the answer to your question is Sweden. Sweden didn't lock down. Sweden didn't make people take the jabs. Sweden's economy is better than ours and they lost fewer people than we did. So it's very simple. So
it was a mistake.
If you look at it, it was a mistake, but I think we can go a bit further than that, maybe another time. If you look at the World Health Organization data for flu globally, it goes like this, up, 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 up. 2020, it disappears. And even in a video, Fauci said, we've got no flu this year. It was a strain of flu. And flu is terrible. I've had it twice. It was awful. But it will only kill you if you have one or two underlying health conditions and you're old. So I'm all for protecting. We could have had Waitrose deliveries in gold-plated Rolls Royces to people who were vulnerable and who needed help. We could now, with that 400 billion, what could we do? This is a problem, Kelvin. This is other people's money. They're spending our money and they don't care about it. When you're running your business, it's your money and it's the shareholders' money.
Okay, so the argument, one of the arguments that, for instance, Johnson, who was ill and got right, it could have been, it was on death's door at some stage, which is incredible, really, is that if you're fat, which is his point, really, not mine, but his point, if you're fat and you don't do exercise, he did do some exercise, he did some running, didn't he?
No, he did some performative running.
Could you have simply said, if you're fat and you're old, right, you're not to do anything, right? And everybody else is to go about their business? Or do you think that would be an unreasonable thing to say?
Well, no, I mean, surely we as, responsible adults will do the same. I said to you, my wife and son are going to see The Odyssey on Friday night. Now, I'm so busy at the moment. You know how busy we are. And I want to stay in, peak condition, as peak as I can be at my age, looking like this. So I don't want to get any summer colds or anything like that. So I won't go to the cinema because...
Do you know what?
Listen
Honestly,
to me.
He's gone mad.
Listen.
Now, this is why he's the maddest man in broadcasting and why he should have his own show. This kind of nonsense about not going to the movies.
Kelvin, I will go, but I'll go to the lunchtime performance when there's no one there. So look at the upsides. No germs floating around. Okay, no one eating popcorn behind me, although once I went into an empty cinema and a bloke sat behind me and started eating popcorn.
Let me interrupt you and tell you this then. You would have gone mad at this. So here am I, I'm on the 8:43, which was so slow, I could have hopped from Weybridge to my station, right, and got there ahead of it. And the guard is obviously either been told, we don't want you to broadcast any bad news about this train going slowly, or we're studying the form for the 150 at Goodwood. One or the other, okay? The bloke comes and sits next to me. He gets out a little book, which is called The Little Book of Psychology, okay? Little Book of Psychology. He then gets out a banana and an apple, right? And he's sitting there, and then, like that. Now, you I know this. Pooch doesn't travel on state transport, that's buses or trains, because he can't stand people eating sitting next to him. I think you would have ended up saying to the guy, do you mind having your bloody breakfast before you get on the train?
Do you know why I wouldn't?
Oh.
Because I don't go on that
Supposing
train for
you
that
had
reason.
gone on the train, though.
Yeah, but that's why it's happened before. A guy, Mike loves the story, there was a guy behind me, it was an empty bloody carriage, travelling up for a meeting, bloke behind me, just sat behind me, I don't know why, I think it might have been shady on that side, eating some crisps. I said, excuse me, mate, I said there are lots of seats here, I was sitting here, I'm trying to read a book, and all I can hear is your crisps. He just went, carried on. I said, would you mind either desist your crisp eating or move? He said, no. So I just grabbed his bag of crisps and threw them out the window. I said, you can't eat them now. And just sat there, and I read the rest of my book. I don't like being in situations like that.
And what did the bloke do?
Didn't eat his crisps.
No, I know he didn't eat his crisps, but did he come and smack you in the chops or something?
No.
Fantastic! What a great story. I've got some super chat coming up
Oh,
here.
yeah.
This I like. Now this comes from Happy Bear 376. You lose the fifth if you have immunity in America.
Oh, interesting.
How do
I think she means that if he has a complete blanket pardon, that he's not allowed to plead the fifth. So that will go to lawyers and to court.
Oh right, I didn't know that. It's very interesting. Then another super chat here saying Pooch is 100% correct. My wife had COVID vaccine and now she has stage 2 heart failure.
Chris, sorry to hear that.
I'm very sorry about that. He had a great show. Oh well, I'm very pleased. Thank you very much indeed for that. I've got another super chat here. It's coming in. Lest we forget, the pandemic was a global social experiment on human compliance, especially in Western civilization. Fauci needs to be tried by global citizens and to be pumped with all his cocktails. Right. Okay.
Well, you do know, Kelvin, that at the time when we were saying that it was a lab leak, that talk was shut down. Did you know their YouTube channel was shut down?
Why? That's because somebody came on and said
it was a lab leak or whatever. It was anti. Anyway, so that
was wrong.
They were so in the pockets that I remember Mike rang me up and we were looking at. I had a streaming platform. We were looking at putting it. So you couldn't say it was a lab leak. Yet now we know it was a lab leak. Yeah. It's absolutely ludicrous. I just want to finish.
Can I just ask you? Is their next guest Vicky Price? Yes. Oh right, brilliant.
Is she there?
Okay.
She is, yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, you stay there, though, man. This is good. This is good. I'm very grateful for Vicky Price sparing some time for us today. Hi, Vicky. It's been a long time. You're looking well, though. You're looking good.
Thank you very much. It's the sun, It's we were having a heat wave, as I'm sure you're aware. So even though I'm Greek-born, I find this weather fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Tell me, I see you haven't been named as the Chancellor, which comes as a bit of a surprise and a shock to us all. If you're sitting there as the Chancellor today, looking at the state of the country, 100 billion going out in interest payments, we don't seem to have money for everything, but every 5 minutes, Burnham announces some new policy which is going to cost money, which I'm unclear where that money is going to come from. Do you think Labour understand where we are, or are they just saying we don't care, we're going to carry on spending, there's not going to be any cutbacks in spending, and actually come the day of the election in 3 years' time, people will thank us for spending money we haven't got?
Well, for the moment, the announcements by Andy Burnham haven't been particularly costly. Yes, they will mean a few billions. Possibly, but they're not going to happen immediately either. Even the bus fares, the cut isn't happening until next year. Some of the things that have been announced already won't happen until the beginning of October. So we can wait and see what happens to inflation in the meantime. So it's not major. What may be more significant is how do you actually pay for the care, the new care.
Yep.
support, if you like, that needs to be given. I think we all know that it needed to be reformed without any doubt. There have been so many attempts to do that, and they've been ignored. Something needs to give. There are various options, and some of those options are not very expensive. They may cost £4 billion extra a year if everybody has a cap beyond which they don't pay anything for their care. There was a suggestion about that by Andrew Dilnot years ago, or 35,000 originally, 85,000 or thereabouts is what was being discussed towards the end, but none of that has happened. It's much more expensive if you have personal care that everyone has access to, and but pays for their the sort of premises where they may have to go and stay. But then if it's completely free, it might cost £18 billion extra a year. Now, all that will take time to happen. So, in other words, your question, are we going to find that there is a lot more spending that is happening somehow rather needs to be financed by something or other, whether it's borrowing or taxes? The amounts so far are not enormous, and there are indications from Andy Burnham that he's going to be looking more at the welfare cuts that need to happen, and that because it is him rather than Keir Starmer, he may get more support from the rest of the Labour Party to implement some of those cuts. So yes, I can sympathise with your premise, but we may be pleasantly surprised. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
So it's quite interesting you take up that point on the death tax, because Burnham has actually said that we're going to follow the Denmark experiment, or the Denmark policy, which is actually free at the point of demand, and we don't care whether you're a billionaire or you're totally skint. You're going to see out your days, quotes, on the state, i.e. everybody's taxes going to go up. Actually, there, as you correctly point out, there are other prospects in Europe which look a lot cheaper. It would surely be in his interest, because if this report isn't going to come back until 27, 28, it can't be implemented before 29. So basically, it becomes a manifesto pledge, along
Indeed.
with, I suspect, leaving Europe, another classic that'll be. But I can see all that. So there's some good points there. Let me ask you about Gary Lineker. Now, he and the only millionaires left in the UK, as far as I can see, most of the people I know have gone. And yet I always bump into other people who say, you think there's a lot gone? I know a lot personally gone. There's massive numbers have left the country where they can. Do you think it's appropriate? Why do these people say this kind of thing? Because they know that by saying it, all that they're going to do is get a whole tubload poured on them on the basis, if you want to pay more tax, be my guest.
No, absolutely, and indeed it's been said already. So they've all been asked, why can't you just pay more tax, or perhaps give to good causes, which I think is what quite a lot of rich people, millionaires now, of course, it's billionaires, they're getting very involved in supporting various areas that they feel particularly strongly about. There is a problem with that, which is that they go for their own pet projects. And we all know that there are all sorts of other things that need to be funded, such as we were talking about social care. Why can't we just make sure that that money gets to the place where it has the best rewards, if you like, for society as a whole, rather than them deciding to support whatever, a charity elsewhere that perhaps we don't particularly care about from this part of the world, perhaps. But there is no doubt that more can be done in terms of looking at that extreme wealth. And I think there's been, we're not talking necessarily about Gary Lineker here, but there are so many billionaires around. There's a big debate which is being held actually even by right-wing papers and sort of middle-of-the-road publications like The Economist, which is, is it right that there should be so much wealth concentrated in just a few hands? I mean, by few, I mean there are now thousands of billionaires, of course. Should we be doing something to get some of that benefit spread more widely to their workers, to everybody else? So there is a sort of social ethical debate that needs to be made. But the truth is that, indeed, as you said, quite a lot of people have left. And some of the work that we have done in my organization on the non-dom changes shows that, in fact, when you collect from the non-doms with the changes that have happened, if you get below a certain level of people remaining in this country, you just lose the whole benefit of having tightened the situation so that you could get more money from them. So there is a point always where, if you tax too much at the top, you just get people leaving and they can go somewhere else. And I think that is a worry. So for anyone who's thinking of a wealth tax, it's being discussed in France, being discussed everywhere, needs to bear that in mind.
Jolly good. Okay, Vicky, thank you very much indeed. I hope to come back to you on a regular basis. What is the organisation that you work for or help with who is looking at the non-dom aspect?
And we have produced reports. I'm Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economics and Business Research, CEBR, and they've done a lot of work on the non-doms.
Yeah, I know the founder of that. That's great. Okay, Vicky, very nice to see you, and glad to see you. You're enjoying the sunshine. It's even hotter in Greece. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know the boss of that. There's quite an interesting story of that guy. Which I'm not going into since I'm fairly friendly with him. Right. So
can I pick up on a point on that, please?
Yeah, go on.
Taxing the rich. That clown Gary Stevenson wears a T-shirt. Tax the rich. I went over Waterloo Bridge day before yesterday. I think big sign. Tax the rich. So just because people are billionaires, they've got lots of money, people think they've got too much money, let's give it to other people. How do you think they got that money? They got that money by working very hard and creating jobs and making money for other people.
Creating employment
and creating wealth. They didn't get $1 billion. You and I aren't going to make $1 billion by just walking around doing nothing. We create, not we, but the billionaires create jobs, create wealth. That wealth goes back into the economy. To me, it's ludicrous.
Yeah, no, it's a preposterous argument. We want to have more wealthy people. Look, there is an argument, I don't particularly buy it, but there is an argument that massive amounts of wealth, which some of these people come across, it is ridiculous within one person. More ridiculous than me. I'm not going to pass a law saying take it away. I just find it an incredible thing. If somebody has all that much money, I know that you can have a little bit of money and you're flat out trying to control it all the time. So I have no idea that if you have 20 billion, how much of your day is taken up looking at it.
But look at cause and effect. So Elon Musk is who we're all talking about. Why has he got that much money? Because he keeps starting up companies that are successful, that make money for
and he
the
doesn't
company.
know. He doesn't know when he starts them whether the damn things are going to work or not.
No. And bear in mind, this wealth is on paper. He won't have $1 trillion in the bank.
Yeah.
He will have a lot of money in the bank, but SpaceX is worth an absolute fortune. Tesla, the most popular car in the world now, is worth a fortune.
Yeah.
So I just think this idea, it's the Be Kind brigade again, isn't it? Oh, let's be kind to the people who haven't got as much as other people. Yes, I do understand. I do think we need to be kind in society on a personal level. But those people worked very hard and probably worked 15 hours a day, didn't see their family as much. Well, that's down to them. But they created employment and they created wealth.
Oh, there is no doubt that these people are different. They're Mozarts.
Yep.
Right. And by the way, you don't know who Mozart's kids are either, do you? Something to bear in mind.
I do know the fact he was born on the 27th of January, 1756.
Well, there we are. This is the reason he's on here, because there aren't many people walking around knowing on the day that Mozart was born. Anyway, he knew how to put the crotchets and quavers in.
Only because we share a birthday. I'm born on the 27th of January.
Are you?
Yeah,
okay.
Not
and what about your musical skills?
No, zero, non-existent.
Okay.
You? Do you play any instruments?
No. The fiddle.
The fiddle, on the fiddle.
Yeah, on the fiddle. When you got 30, 40 billion, I mean, these are huge amounts of money. You then leave it, right? So you pay tax on that, okay? So that's a good thing right? Depending, we should, if you want to do this, go and live in Israel. And especially if you're Jewish, go and live in Israel. But it doesn't really matter. Fantastic country. Go and live in Israel. You don't pay. There's no inheritance tax. I would have, and so you're going to get people going at the end of their lives. Now that is where I have a slight problem, because if there's going to be some form of inheritance tax, I'm not saying 40% is the right number or the wrong number. All I'm saying is that you are going to do a lot of good if you're a very wealthy person. So what lives after you is whatever you leave.
Yeah, but what is the problem with having 0% inheritance tax? That money then goes back into the system because the kids will piss it up against the wall.
Yeah.
They'll buy properties.
Clogs to clogs.
Yeah, exactly. It will be clogs to clogs. It's that one who and they'll go to nothing. But the money still goes back into the economy. I think what people object to is the state telling us what to do, the state saying we are going to...
Okay, but this is what we got with Burnham, haven't we?
Yeah.
He is absolutely in the Harold Wilson bandwagon here, on the Harold Wilson bandwagon. They want to take your money, and these collection of people are then going to decide how it should be best spent. As Clarkson points out, he's had a disastrous year, right? Worst ever year on 1,000 acres of farming, right? In fact, they should have planted, I think, I read some in his piece, I think, 200 acres for barley and wheat, I think, or something. And he couldn't do it. He said, because if I did do it, I would simply lose money for every bushel of wheat that I could go. And yet everybody would say, oh, it's all right for Clarkson, he owns 1,000 acres. How do you think he got that stuff, right? By writing fantastic columns, doing brilliant TV shows, bringing enormous pleasure to many people. Nobody seems to have a view in this country that people should live in large houses.
But also
or have
the
farms.
fact that if Clarkson's operation goes belly up, what happens to his staff? What happens to the people he supplies? Yeah. That's the problem. That's where people are myopic about this. They think it is just that one big fat cat, your Rupert Murdoch or Elon Musk with all the money. They don't think about. I mean, how many people did Murdoch employ? You know, when you're at the Sun.
Look, I can tell you honestly, with Murdoch, an absolute machine.
Yeah.
Right. A guy 7 days a week, 12, 15, 18 hours a day, always working, always thinking. And the effect is that he's created huge amounts of money and actually security of employment, which is, in this world, how important is that? That you know when you go to work, there's a very good chance that somebody's going to continue to employ you, because with the atmosphere that's out there in the UK, you're always fearing, an email turns up for you. And that's why I see one other thing happening with Chat and Claude and similar, is that you're going to find ordinary one-man bands, sole traders, 2- and 3-man bands, businesses like this. They are going to be the future because you are so much bigger with AI when your ability to use it. My only issue about AI is the following. I am concerned that they won't make enough money, the AI companies, to cover their investment. Because in essence, it's like a phone. Yeah, it's important to have, but there does come a point where actually, if it's £10 a month, fine, right? If it becomes £100 a month or something like that, people will have some doubt. There's a super chat come up, but there seems to be a lot of them today.
Yeah, I like these.
Yes, I like these. We like super chats. I can't actually read that one.
Scarlett, Luke, can you read it out?
There you go, trickle-down economics is proven nonsense. And being taxed because you depart life is equally nonsense. Less taxes equals more freedom for the common man.
Okay,
That's
well,
$10 donation.
Well, but thank you very much.
How much of a donation was that?
$10.
$10.
$10, yeah.
Someone watching from the US, from the States.
Oh, right.
And listen,
Well,
you've worked in America. I've worked in America.
Yeah.
When you go there, when I say I'm doing something, or you say you're doing something, they don't go, well, they go, wow, great. They want to be, how can I help? Yeah. How can I be part of this?
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying that we're not all like that here, because certainly among the, from the centre to the right, and we have meetings, we meet so many people who are saying, oh, that's a great idea. How can I get on board?
Yes.
But
that was a very good point to you, wasn't it? That you have been amazed, to be honest, in the way that people have warmed towards the UK Live venture. Normally, you like me are wandering around in the desert explaining what a genius you are and being gently shown the door after about half an hour or something like that. UK Live seems to strike a different kind of aspect.
Why
to
do you
this.
think? I've got an answer. Why do you think?
Well, I think first of all because you're a startup, you're not Rupert Murdoch.
Well, hold on. Cards on the table. So you've invested in the company.
I have, yeah.
Okay, and so why did you invest in the company?
Because you threatened to beat me up if I didn't. That's the way the violence. That's the way the violence works in this country.
Come on, MacKenzie, get on with it.
He said, so
Send the boys round.
I actually put up because I like investing in mad ideas. So there are lots of different aspects to what is being broadcast. Okay, so Mike has a long history. He's literally been in the broadcast business, 35 years?
Yeah.
Has a big following on Talk and brought that following to UK Live. I was first offered a franchise run by ITV wanted me to be the breakfast show host on Talk Radio, the old Talk Radio.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. And I persuaded Murdoch and another US investor that we should buy it. And however, the atmosphere wasn't right to start a UK Live. The idea would have been a good idea, but would be considered preposterous,
Yeah.
right? Today, this is fundamentally not quite the norm, but it's at the forefront of change.
Well, that's it.
And there will be more change. I mean, we have lots of people coming to this station now saying, we'd like to broadcast, including quite famous names. And it's up for Pooch to either bring them over the line or to encourage them to follow.
I will say, what's the most important thing in business? Luck.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, your idea, has to solve a problem for somebody. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
You know, you've got dust all over your carpet, door-to-door salesman. Back in the day, he'd throw a whole load of dust over the carpet. How to get rid of that? Look at this little Bissell Hoover. Bissell, old school.
Yeah.
We are now at a time where our audience here and people around the country, we're all waking up. We're all fed up with the mainstream media. This conflagration of having the wool pulled over our eyes, being told what to do, and your generation of newspapermen are now defunct. There's nobody probing probing and asking the questions.
Yeah.
Look at you peering behind the curtain. Nobody is doing that. So people are sitting at home frustrated, thinking, where can I, hear something new, get an answer or a solution to something that's worrying me, or B, how can I become part of it? And we want to create this community. So that's what it is. And to very quickly, I know we've got news coming up. We have, in the next 3 weeks, Kelvin, we are going to be launching from 7 till 7. We are going to have Mike's show, your show. We've got a fantastic show that has been curated by Elena, Charlotte and Scarlett called Adult Human Females, with a brilliant panel of fantastic women talking about the day's events. We've got shows in the afternoon. We've got a super surprise. Everyone will know him coming on later in the afternoon. We've got some great names. So This is just the beginning.
Okay, just the beginning. Right, well, look, we're going to go to the news. I think, unfortunately, one of the guests has disappeared. By the way, is she a journalist, that lady, Lisa Nand?
Yeah, she's a travel journalist.
Oh, is she? Okay, okay, that's fine. Well, I think she's obviously she's disappeared, so that's a shame. And we're going to go to the news, and then we're going to carry on talking about the world with Pooch, which seems a lot more interesting than most of the guests, to be honest.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Britain's officially in drought across more than half of England, with July on course to be one of the driest on record, and some spots going 40-plus days without a drop of rain. The Environment Agency's advice? Take shorter showers, because nothing says climate crisis management like telling the public to rinse faster while the fields turn to dust and wildfire alerts flash red. Meanwhile, a dinghy flotilla of up to 1,000 migrants cross the channel. A new PM Nob of the North, Andy Burnham, is still insisting his boat's plan is working. The papers are politely asking how that's going. French authorities, despite the usual billion plus from UK taxpayers, appear to have waved them through again. Consistency is key. And on the domestic front, Burnham's busy with cross-party talks on social care, not ruling out tax rises, or that ever-popular death tax. While experts warn the system is fairly bust. Remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
He looked pretty out there, didn't he,
Yeah,
with that moustache? Right, so we're going to go through the papers now.
Yeah, what about the Alison Pearson story?
Right, so Alison Pearson, great story. I wonder whether we got any of the videos of what happened there, whether what she's currently saying today. Great triumph. Without Alison Pearson,
Yep.
I suspect cops will be running riot over Britain. It was a really disgraceful effect. I think it was a Sunday morning.
It was Remembrance Sunday morning.
Remembrance Sunday
and
morning.
remember Graham Linehan as well. There's a few that have...
Yeah. So there's a knock on the door, and it turns out to be two police officers from Suffolk or Essex Police, Suffolk Police, I imagine. I think she's just into Suffolk. And basically, they're saying to her they didn't like something that she had tweeted, and they're going to. It
was a Gaza protest tweet. There was a big protest, and it was in Parliament Square. She posted something and then realised it might have been taken the wrong way and deleted it.
Right, in the same way as.
And then months later.
Months later, up turns these cops. So it becomes a massive thing. And the reason it was a massive thing, and this is where you guys should take this on board and what you should do. One, the Daily Telegraph, of which she is a columnist, a brilliant columnist, by the way, gets right behind her in the protest. Two, she becomes a member of the Free Speech Union, the Toby Young. You must do that. It's, I don't know, 60 odd quid or 35 quid. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're a regular tweeter or a regular Insta or regular Facebooker, just do that, right? There are people out there who want to be unhelpful to you. And honestly, when you turn up fully loaded with lawyers and stuff, these people go to water. And this is what happened with Alison Pearson. She starts pushing back and back and back. Then the local police commissioner decides that he is going to join in. And I think he goes on Newsnight. And he says two things which have now been decreed as defamation by a High Court judge. And the following has had to happen. Commissioner has got to pay a 5-figure sum, which I suspect, knowing what that all means, is probably 10 grand, actually. Okay? Once it gets above 10 grand, they start calling it substantial damages. So a 5-figure fund, we say, is 10 grand. And a humiliating apology saying, I'm so sorry. So sorry, Miss Miller. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have said that. Da-di-da-di-da. She has wiped the floor with him, okay? And what people are saying is you went on Newsnight. That money should not be taken from the council taxpayer or the taxpayer generally. That money should come from you, Mr. Commissioner. That's not the end of it. She's going after the cops. Do you remember that?
Yes, it's a guy called David Hurst.
Yeah.
I think the police commissioner. It's Essex.
Yeah, it's Essex Police, thank you. Yeah, she's going after the cops. That's still going through. I fully expect her to win that. And this is a triumph. It's a triumph for you. Triumph for me, triumph for Pooch. These are great victories in the face of the state. Now, Lucy Connolly, in the face of the state, didn't have the Free Speech Union. She didn't have the Daily Telegraph. She had a defence counsel who appears to have said to her, you either plead guilty or you'll get 7 years. He was completely wrong. Because had the media joined in, had Toby Young joined in, she rejected Toby Young, right? Honestly, she was an ordinary woman. She's a lady in Peterborough, right? I think 31 or something, right? She had a kid, you know. She doesn't know. She got her counsel saying, you're going to jail for 7 years. And on this side, she got Toby saying, I can be helpful. She didn't want to take the risk. I don't blame her. I'm doing a spectator do.
Can I just jump
yeah,
in there?
go on.
Because when Lucy didn't want to go with the Free Speech Union, that I'm led to believe is because the police had stipulated that unless she pleads guilty, she could be on remand for up to a year.
Yeah.
That's why. So yes, she could have said, okay, I'll go with the Free Speech Union. Great, we'll fight this. But she's got a young family. You know, she just lost a child.
I didn't know that.
So this is where it all came out, and this is where there's no humanity. I mean, forget Starmer at Southport. What an idiot.
Can I ask you this though? Are you suggesting the police might say, or the prosecuting authorities might say, we're going to keep you on remand? Surely they wouldn't have won that battle, would they?
Have you ever sat in a police station when that's happening?
No.
I've not sat in a police station when someone's threatening
No.
me with a year on
No.
remand. I think I'd be worried,
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
want to see I'd want to see you.
Yeah.
Lucy had lost a child prior to the Southport thing.
Yeah.
It affected her so much seeing those young girls killed.
Yeah.
She was so upset, and she said
She spoke for us all, didn't she?
She said you can burn them down for all I care.
Yeah.
Which is not inside.
It's not the same as saying
It's not, no,
burn
no.
it down.
She deleted the tweet, and then to be threatened with that, I can see why she did it. She's a tremendously brave lady. I recommend that everybody goes out and gets her book. I think it's called A Tweet Too Far, and hopefully some good's going to come out of that. But look at what's just happened with Zach Polanski,
Yeah.
and we're only making plans for Nigel with the guillotine, and the police have said then Reform have referred that to the police, and the police said we're not going to do anything about it. So does that mean we can actually tweet what we like now?
Well, it does. It is a change, isn't it? Because if this had happened around about the Lucy Connolly time, then the bottom line is that there might well have been a charge. Why the police need to bother? There's so much going on in criminal actions in our country, but why on earth should you have to spend your time worrying about things like tweets? They don't matter. There's no evidence at all to suggest that they encourage anybody to do anything beyond either look at it and disagree with it, look at it and agree with it. But the idea that you say, I must run out and go and burn something down, or I must go and attack somebody, I don't know. I thought
We've just done a tech thing. We had a bit of a mic failure, but look, I've got my backup mic here, Kelvin.
Oh, right.
So we're using a backup mic. So is that working, Scarlett?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, good. Well, actually, they're good mics, aren't
They're
they?
very good mics, yeah.
In fact,
The
in some ways, better than this, aren't
Well, no, because if you've got a guest and the mic is directional,
Yeah.
and then you start doing that, they can't hear me now.
Okay.
Now they can hear me.
they? Why, is that a directional mic?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Whereas that's omnidirectional.
Okay, fine.
But so do you think there's a bit of a change?
I do. So Alison Pearson, this will put the fear of God up the senior reaches of quotes, justice, unquotes, in this country. That police commissioner, he should pay the money out of his own pocket if he has got 12.5 grand, for instance. I mean, some of these guys, it's all mouth and trousers, So, but for Alison Pearson, it's a great moment. I mean, she would have been fearful. Can you imagine a Sunday morning, knock on your door, 2 cops standing there? There's only one reason that they're going to be there now, right? And they're there not to supply good news to you. What I'm concerned about is why on earth senior officers within the forces of this country consider it a good use of the time of junior officers. It's unreasonable to me that these junior officers, what do they know about anything? They don't know anything about anything. And yet what they will recognise that they're being plunged into a political maelstrom in which their own names and their own standing in society is affected. And it affects all police officers. Because you can imagine that when police officers in Essex go and pull somebody up for speeding or something, they say, haven't you got better things to do, like nicking Alison Pearson? They will be the subject of satirical, abusive chance from ordinary people, and that is wrong. Police are reduced in their standing in society. I love seeing the cops. We had this issue outside the building in which a lady was shouting, right? How did I feel better? I saw 2 cops draw up on motorbikes. They jumped straight off the bikes, went to see what was the issue, and were going to deal with it. Who else is doing that?
Well,
we
did
need
it there.
police.
Okay, so you don't need the police all the time because the police interfere quite a bit. We had it on private property here. I escorted the lady off quite nicely. When I see the police,
She was shouting her head off outside. She couldn't carry on doing that.
And she had a problem. And listen, once you're angry, it's very hard to talk somebody down. I didn't lay any hands on her. I was very polite. I see the police now, the way they've been indoctrinated with the College of Policing. I've been stopped many times when they've got the wrong number plate, or they think your insurance isn't valid, and it is. And if I get called mate, I just say to them, I will provide you my license and my documents, but I won't say anything else to you unless I have a solicitor. They put my back up straight away. I just don't think we have that friendly Bobby on a beat vibe with the police now, because it has almost become them and us.
Oh, I don't agree with that, man.
You don't?
I don't agree with that. No, I like talking. I like talking to the cops. The cops are always helpful towards.
Yeah. Have you ever been in any situation when you're protesting against something? Were you up at the COVID marches when the police were?
Well, I was
were
not at the
attacking us?
COVID marches.
Yeah, well, I was.
Yeah.
And the police were attacking us. Have you seen what about what the police did with Maccabi and Aston Villa?
Well, I thought that was disgraceful.
Listen,
anyway, that guy got fired.
Well, I'm not talking about your average cop. I'm talking about the overview.
These are the people
policing.
that I interact with,
cool.
which are the average cop, right? I don't know police sergeants. I don't know detective inspectors, detective chiefs. The only time I ever see them is on television documentaries.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I don't think the average cop in the street wants to be doing all of this nonsense. They want to be policing. They want to be, stopping the bad guys and all of that. But I think they've been told to go in a certain direction, and I just don't think at the moment that there's a very good atmosphere in this country.
Oh, what, towards the police?
No, not towards the police.
Oh, right.
I think we've never had a revolution in this country other than Oliver Cromwell, and since then. But I think there's a febrile atmosphere at the moment. People are fed up with taxation. They're fed up with borders being overrun. They're fed up with clowns in government saying one thing and doing the other. Andy Burnham, number 10 of the North, he gets a £30,000 Airbus flight to go up there. I mean, that is just utterly ludicrous.
I thought that was bad politics.
It's ridiculous.
And he would have known it was bad politics, by the way. So and people around him, they said, you can either take a plane, which is going to cost a fortune, or you can take the train. The issue with the train, or the car, right? Mm-hmm. The issue with the train is, of course, they would effectively have to, for security reasons, have to seal off first class. And they thought that would cause a bigger row than the cost of the plane.
Drive up.
Yeah.
Drive up.
Yeah. Drive up is a solution. Now, driving up, how long would that take you?
Go the
3
night
hours.
Before. Go the night before.
Yeah.
Whatever. Go at
look,
night.
it can be done.
Yeah.
I thought that, so they would have sat there gaming the whole thing out. In the end of the day, he's not going to be spending his time in Manchester. And actually, it's a performative action based around PR. Or I hate I've said it before, say it again, I hate the idea he's setting North against South, right? And the South enjoys a standard of living, right? And taking that money and it heads north, right? Without the South, by the way, the whole country will be Oldham's. Right, we've got a chap coming on now called Frank Ferretti. He's Emeritus Professor of
Frank's fantastic.
Frank, fantastic?
Frank is fantastic.
Oh, right, fantastic. Emeritus, you've just been described as fantastic there, Frank.
I was with him at the Battle of Ideas.
Okay, Professor of Sociology at the University of Kent. Can I ask you something, Frank, before we get into the detail of the discussion? Things are not going well at the University of Kent at the moment. As far as I know, they have laid off a tremendous number of staff and reduced the number of the courses on offer. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. The university is kind of being emptied out from within. It's become so obsessed with just mere financial survival,
Yeah,
but it's forgot its core mission, which is actually to educate people.
I see. And literally, though, haven't hundreds of staff been laid off? Aren't you going to merge with the University of Canterbury or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's the University of Greenwich. I mean, fortunately, I'm now an emeritus, so I left it. But talking to my colleagues at the university, they worried about the fact that core subjects like philosophy, English literature, any of
Yeah.
the humanities are being downgraded, or altogether they're getting rid of them because they don't think they make money for the university. So it is a very sad state of affairs where a good university suddenly turns into a college of further education, which is what we're seeing throughout the country at the moment.
And likely under the Burnham plan to see more. I mean, you're literally going to see half the universities of the country shut, aren't you? Isn't it going to be like private schooling?
I think that's right. But there's an even bigger problem because the Burnham plans are inherently academic. They're basically talking about the fact that we don't want subjects to be too academic because they make life too difficult for pupils and students. But actually, the whole purpose of schooling is to intellectually stretch young people, see how far they can go, rather than simply to say that we're going to give up on you. We're not going to challenge you. We're not going to expect you to become competent individuals who are intellectually independent. We're going to treat you like essentially like patients in a hospital ward who need a lot of support and a lot of raising of your self-esteem. And what I really worry about is the people coming out of this education system are not going to be in a position to actually deal with the demands of academic education in the university.
Okay, fine. So it said on my little prompt on here that you are concerned, as we should all be concerned, by the way, on kind of woke ideology in the socialization of children. Is that how serious is it, and what age are you talking about in relation to children? What age are you worried for?
Well, every year it's getting younger and younger and younger. So you now have, for example, what they call sexuality education, which tells 6, 7, 8-year-old children that you might think you're a girl or a boy, but it may well be the case that by the time you're a teenager, your gender will change, and therefore don't commit to being a girl or a boy. Be open to the idea that somehow you're going to change. But even worse, they often send a signal out that your parents know far less about sex and sexual relations than you do, or the teachers do. And what they're doing, in a sense, is creating this space between young people and their parents, so that, in a sense, the generational interaction which you need for healthy socialization becomes ruptured and is entirely taken over by essentially curriculum engineers who basically teach young people that Britain's past, Britain's history is one of shame, who basically teach young people that understanding literature for its own sake is really very posh and academic, and it's far better to criticize it because of its political outlook or because of the values that it expresses. So pedagogy has changed to the point at which the values that it promotes in schools are almost self-consciously different to the values of their parents or grandparents or ancestors. And I call this teaching young people a culture of repudiation, where they learn to repudiate just about anything that was important in terms of traditional British values.
Well, it's funny, I was talking last night with somebody who told me that a friend of theirs it runs the pastoral care for a secondary school, and she no longer refers to, when she meets them, to the children, they are the teenagers who come to see her, as he or she. She refers to them all as they, because one day they come in as a boy, the next minute they come in as a girl, and this bounce goes up and down. And she is concerned that if she refers to somebody as a he who has now decided to be a she, that person starts shouting at them that you've wrongly identified me, and literally this becomes a big issue within the school, and either it's an upsetting day for her or she actually imperils her own future at the school. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yes, I think the schools are responsible for this, because instead of telling 6 or 7, 8-year-old children not to play around and say that you are now a girl or you are now a boy, but to basically treat them in accordance with their biological self, they allow children to kind of play around, and they gets to the point at which children can literally invent who they are. So the other day, my wife was giving a lecture at one of our schools, and in the front row, there were 2 young boys dressed up as rabbits. They were wearing a rabbit hat.
Yeah.
And my wife was a bit bemused by this, because everybody else was wearing a school uniform. And afterwards, she asked them, what are you doing? What's the point of your masquerade? And they were saying they were identifying as rabbits. And this is something that their teachers have allowed, and teachers respect them for being furry rabbits rather than boys and girls. Now, that's a grotesque extreme of what's really going on. But by being sensitive, as in the way that schools talk about this, you're actually messing up young people's identity, because basically what you're saying is, we don't know who you are, you don't know who you are, so it's up to you to make up who you are on a day-to-day basis. And instead of being the adults in the room and laying down the law, this is how I expect to treat you, and you have to accept that we're going along with this, and eventually we become complicit in creating a very chaotic situation where people are scared to open their mouth in case they misgender a young child.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. We had some guy, some gay activists on here talking about that particular situation, saying that on these pride marches, loads of young kids are turning up as what are they called? Furrians, I think.
Pups.
Fur pups or whatever. And I was talking to a teacher about this, and she was saying, "Yep, that's the way it is. And if you don't put up with it, it's you as the teacher whose career is imperiled by this, not by saying, actually, we're not going to allow this. You're just not going to do it. Or don't come to school, one or the other." The idea that when you come into assembly or something, or come into a classroom, 2 or 3 of them are dressed as animals, and God knows what that does for discipline within the school. So what other areas, Frank, worry you about youngsters? Are we bringing up a kind of collection of children, or a whole broad band of people who don't know, who have no boundaries? Anything that they think is correct because they thought it.
Well, it's very important not to blame the children, because it's not the children who have dreamt up all these very silly ideas. The problem begins essentially in the nurseries already, where nursery workers, nursery educators have a lot of pressure on them to go along with what is essentially an extremely woke curriculum, an extremely woke pedagogic agenda. So we now have a situation where a lot of nursery workers are told that it's quite important that they teach young essentially babies or toddlers about the problem of racism, because they argue that racism is almost inherent in everybody, and therefore white children who are 1, 2, or 3 years old should be educated to avoid turning into a full-blown racist later on. So once you begin to go down that path, what you really end up with is a situation where by the time you're 12, 13, or 14, you've been miseducated to the point at which that you don't know who you are. But even worse is the fact that increasingly our curriculum become dominated by psychology. So every form of misbehavior by children has now got a psychological diagnosis attached to it. And we have a situation where both parents and the children are delighted that they have ADHD, or they're delighted they have dyslexia or something of that sort. And what we're doing gradually is we're medicalizing young people to the point at which they become distracted from dealing with the difficult challenges of growing up. They are difficult. We all experience a lot of problems and pain when we try to deal with the difficulties that young people have to face. But if we then, in a sense, deal with, instead of acknowledging these problems, treat them as medical problems, then we do end up with a very bad situation where young people become unable to become genuine independent citizens later on. It's not their fault. It's the fault of adult society who's become accomplices in this form of systematic miseducation.
Right. I mean, that's a good point, that. I mean, my question about this is if you take those two rabbits sitting in the front row like this, which really makes it sound as though you're taking part in some rather curious one-time play or TV drama, what happens to those kids? They go, I don't know how old those children were, but say they're 14 or 15 or something. I mean, they're not far away from offering themselves on the job market. What happens to them when they go for an interview? Do they turn up wearing the old furry outfit, and say, you've got to hire me when I look like this? And the bosses say, no, thanks very much. And you're sentencing yourself to a lifetime of benefits.
That's partly the case, but there's also another problem, because increasingly, a lot of employers are also in a situation where they find it very difficult to call out young applicants. And in many workplaces, there's a growing tendency to turn an eye to some of these forms of behavior. Especially the big tech companies have led the way. So if you go into a Google workspace, it essentially looks like a nursery. You have soft toys, you have all these soft chairs, you have basically an ethos that playing and working are really not contradictory. You can do a bit of both if you're an enlightened employer. So a lot of employers have gone along with this. Not everybody, thankfully, because obviously if you're running a factory or if you're running a transportation system, you cannot, in a sense, put up with this kind of nonsense. But nevertheless, what we're seeing is a societal-wide trend whereby the ethos that young people pick up in schools gradually gets exported to the rest of society and gradually begins to, in a sense, infiltrate itself into the workplace and other places.
Okay, Frank, thank you very much indeed. Frank is Emeritus Professor of Sociology at the University of Kent. Good stuff to talk to, and give my regards to your wife and the fact that she has to deal with a couple of rabbits asking questions. That's a good one. We should get your wife on. You should do a double act with your wife. Get her to tell all her stories as well. We'd be here for hours. Thank you very much indeed. That's Frank Ferretti. Thank you very much.
I read Frank in Spiked. He writes for Spiked.
Oh, does
online.
he?
Yeah, it's very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Good stuff. Actually, I think I saw the editor of that. What's his name on Newsnight late last night? I don't know. I went to the theatre last night. I went to see Jesus Christ Superstar, which, can I just say, may be very good. But remember, it's written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and therefore it's all lyrics.
Yep.
Right? So unless you have read the lyrics beforehand, you have no idea what this is about.
Same as Nopper, though.
So this is £160 a ticket. The place was sold out, by the way, sold out. And there were a lot, and people seemed to enjoy it. But me and, so my wife enjoyed it, and I think one of her kids enjoyed it. The other one couldn't understand a word of it, and she's a very bright lady. She's a teacher herself. And I was puzzled, but pretending that I actually understood it all.
Which theatre was it?
It was at the Palladium, actually.
Oh, okay.
I can't imagine how much, I can't imagine what the gross was.
Tube to Oxford Circus?
No, driving from Weybridge, leaving at 4:15 to arrive at 10:06, right?
Insane.
Actually, it makes a lot more sense, because I had to go home as a family arrangement. It makes a lot more sense, to my mind, to have taken the train and get to Oxford Circus and walk out. But anyway, look, it was packed. It's had good reviews. The dancing is great. If you're going, study the lyrics beforehand. Otherwise, you will be puzzled throughout.
Same with an opera, though, Kelvin. You read the libretto beforehand,
Yeah.
or you won't know what's going on. And obviously, most operas are in Italian or German, and you read a translation, then you know what's going on.
Correct. So the answer is, I don't know whether you've seen Hamilton. So Hamilton, exactly the same.
Yeah.
And what they should do, I know it sounds
Subtitles.
either subtitles, which I'll be 100% in favour of, or secondly, an explanation before the play musical starts. It's a musical thing, really, saying this is what it's about, right?
It's on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Do a bit of research.
Or you could do research,
Yeah.
whatever. Don't do what I did, which is turning up and looking puzzled for the first half. The second half, fantastic.
Hold on. When you said you had to, because you were here, then you said you had to go home and come back. Did you have to go home because you're scared of your wife, or did you really have to go home?
After the break.
Morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Britain's officially in drought across more than half of England, with July on course to be one of the driest on record, and some spots going 40 plus days without a drop of rain. The Environment Agency's advice? Take shorter showers, because nothing says climate crisis management like telling the public to rinse faster while the fields turn to dust and wildfire alerts flash red. Meanwhile, a dinghy flotilla of up to 1,000 migrants cross the channel. A new PM Knob of the North, Andy Burnham, is still insisting his boat's plan is working. The papers are politely asking how that's going. French authorities, despite the usual billion plus from UK taxpayers, appear to have waved them through again. Consistency is key. And on the domestic front, Burnham's busy with cross-party talks on social care, not ruling out tax rises or that ever-popular death tax. While experts warn the system is fairly bust. Remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Yeah, hi there. We got a good one coming up right now. Sunil Sharma is going to give us... hi there, Sunil. How are you?
Hi, Kelvin. How are you?
Yeah, fine, man. Thanks. Well, I am all right, except having a Labour government trying to nick every last penny off me, even wanting money. It makes me laugh now on taxation, not now, but the idea of having to give them money ahead of whether you've actually earned the taxes or not. I mean, the country is so bust, I can't even believe it, And then somebody says, I've got a good idea. We'll have a new Prime Minister who decides, I tell you what, we just need 19 more billion, and then everybody can have a kind of NHS safety net if you're not feeling very well or you're not well. If you're not well, yes, correct. We should see you right, okay? And if you got the money, you should pay for yourself. That's the whole point of life. The idea that you're saying, actually, I've done very well in my life. Oh, I'm not well. Oh, in that case, I'll stuff it onto the state. Completely wrong. And actually, the system may not work perfectly now, but there's systems in Germany where there's like 85,000, you've got to pay the first 85 grand or something amount. It's completely wrong. Right, Sunil, tell me, what is pleasing you and what is aggravating you about our new Prime Minister?
There's not really a lot pleasing me with the new Prime Minister. I mean, the decision to stop digital IDs was good. I think that was one positive. I think that the frustration is similar to what you just said there, this emphasis on tax, where it just seems to be trying to find another way to tax more people. We saw the stat yesterday that this is a record low amount of millionaires in the country since the financial crisis.
Yep.
So it makes you think about what's going to happen next. He keeps talking about these taxes to the wealth, or the wealth tax and all this other nonsense. But the reality is all this means is that the average person in the UK is just going to have to pay more tax. Their lives are going to get even tougher. And I think your point on the NHS is so true. I think there's so much money that's gone to the NHS. I don't think a penny more should go to the NHS. And I think it should be scrutinized more. We've seen in the last decade, for example, people who have been able to do their gender switches, gender changes, whilst other people are waiting waiting for surgery, important surgery, for months on end. I just think the NHS, in fact, has almost too much money, but there should be a real evaluation of where that money goes to. And I think I'm kind of sick and tired of everyone constantly using the NHS as this barometer of how successful a country
Yeah, here.
I think it's completely wrong.
Yes, I mean, I absolutely, look, I think we should just pay. Do you know what would be the biggest collapse? The biggest collapse round my way, there's quite a good little clinic. As long as you want to go online, I don't mind going online, actually, explain what's wrong with me, and then they call me up and I do understand that because of pressure, there are too many people trying to see too few doctors. Why we've got too few doctors is totally beyond me. I'd like to pay. I would like to pay so that there was, and if you are, poor, and if you've got young kids and stuff like that, or you're very old and you're not well, that's different, right? But the vast lot in the middle have got enough money to go down the bedding shop. They've got enough money to go on holiday, got enough money to buy a car. Surely a priority has to be to pay for your own health. And the truth is that there's no scrutiny on the damn stuff. I don't know whether my local hospital, St. Peter's, is any good, or it looks like a massive car crashed the place. I mean, it looks as though you'd like to mow the stuff down and start all over again. It looks so old-fashioned. It looks so higgledy-piggledy. If you ever go to A&E there, honestly, if you're not dead, by the time you go in there, you'll definitely be on the way out. I feel sorry for the doctors in there and the nurses. The pressure the A&E is under at St. Peter's is off the dial. They look exhausted. They sit there exhausted. It can't be right. Something has broken down. And yet everybody now says, okay, if you're seen within 4 hours, that's great. And then you get a thing coming out saying, actually, you failed to do it. It was 5.5 hours. Honestly, that cannot be part of the social service system that works properly. And are we then going to get that transferring into the death tax? Is that going to be the next? It's going to be as bad as the NHS. I mean, this is what worries me about it. And on top of that, they've now said, actually, we're not going to allow private industry involved. We hate profits. Really? What good has the NHS done? Yeah? Honestly, and then we have the BBC now dominating their airways to demand their 185 quid, getting famous people making hundreds of thousands of pounds on the back of the BBC telling us that this is a great thing. Well, if it's so great, why don't they allow us to have a subscription? Then we can decide. Yes, it is great. I want to pay 185 quid. No, I don't want to pay 185 quid. I think famous people telling me when you're making, as the front of that guy is, a comedian, excellent comedian, he's making himself, 300, 500, 700,000 pounds a year. What have they done for us? Anyway, I'm sorry about that. We're supposed to be listening to your views. Right, so you're now Chancellor now, Sunil. All right, I've made you the Chancellor, okay? You can't turn it down. It's too important, the job, right? You want a pay cut. You've decided to become the Chancellor. What is the first 2 things you would do? Immediately you walked in, sat down, call your advisors together, we're doing this and we're doing that.
Slash taxes and raise personal allowance. I think the reality is we've gone down this taxation obsession, you could say, since even the Conservative government, you could say since Blair, basically, where we've just constantly looked at taxation as a way of growth. We now know for a fact you can't grow an economy by taxing people more and more and more. We need to create more wealth. I think the first thing we need to do is slash taxes. These taxes, the levels that we're speaking right now are astronomical. These are World War II levels. I think in the grand scheme of things, this is an absurd amount of tax that people are having to pay. And I think what people should be looking at is, where is that money going to? I think a lot of people are happy to pay some tax, not the amount they're paying now, but some tax where, you can actually see, you can see what you're paying for. You can see infrastructure being good. You can see healthcare being good. You can see schools being good. But in literally every department right now that is being run by the government, you are seeing the levels getting worse. You're seeing the standards decreasing, whilst the amount of tax you're paying is increasing. It makes no sense. And I think that has to be the first one. I think, and also personal allowance, it's gone up so minuscule over the last 20 years. It's completely unfair. And I think you look at a lot of working class people who suffer the most from that. And you could argue maybe that's a reason for why a lot of people decide to stay on the benefit system, because they realize that they're not realistically going to see any benefit from actually working. So I think
Correct.
reshaping the benefit system is another thing that needs to happen as soon as possible, because I think there's a lot of fit and healthy people who should be working and who are not working. And I think they need to look into, I know of course, there are some people who genuinely have mental health issues, but I think we've confused a lot of that in the UK with mental well-being. Everyone has mental well-being issues of some sort. Everyone goes through a slightly sad period, slightly happier period. And I think a lot of the money that's going towards, especially you could argue my generation and a bit younger, who claim to use
How old are you,
mental health.
Sunil? How old are you?
30.
Right. And do you notice, within the wider families or friendship groups, that there are younger people who do appear to be genuinely struggling, or do you think that a lot of it is actually an act to get some money off the stadium?
Unfortunately, maybe not in my circle, but I can definitely see, or outside of that, there are examples of people that are definitely using this for the wrong reasons. We know for a fact now that, some of that is not necessarily their fault. Some of that is the education that they've been set up with. We're seeing school kids, primary school kids, who talk about climate anxiety and as a reason for not going to school, and that's okay now in some schools if you claim that you're so anxious about what's going on with the environment that you can take a day off school. So I think there is a generational thing that's happened there, that we have definitely coddled children, adolescents, and I think that what that's meant is that you're going to see a lot weaker people, both men and females, going into the workforce. So I think that's definitely another massive issue. But I think that a more short-term and more quicker fix, I think they have to lower taxes. They have to increase personal allowance, and they have to look at the benefit scheme. There are so many people in the UK that are unemployed, and that unemployment rate is a lie, because that's just the amount of people who have claimed or are looking to get a job. There's so many people who aren't even looking to get jobs, who are just not even working, and I think that is so concerning. And I think that they're the big things that need to change. And I have absolutely no confidence in Andy Burnham or this current Labour government, whoever the next one is beyond him, to make any changes. I think the only realistic change we'll see is with a general election, which of course he's not going to do.
No, he's never going to do that. He can achieve everything he wants. My bet is that he does take a small run at welfare and actually gets it through, because I think the MPs will be looking to themselves saying, in the event if we turn this down, all we're going to get is a heap of a bucket on us for the next 3 years, and that he will do some kind of performative action on reducing the welfare bill, and that will be considered enough to give him, because what he's constantly working on is his PR rather than the substance. And nor do I expect that death tax to come in until the 29 manifesto. I think because that lady is not even going to come back, with her report until 27, 28, right? And although he said hurry it forward, you can be sure that if our financial position gets slightly worse, there'll be a quiet call. We'll just do a little bit more research on that, and so we'll push it into another government. Anyway, look, Sonny, good to talk to you. I'm sorry for ranting and raving about the BBC. The BBC thing is a total joke. They are literally dominating their airways with this ad. I find it infuriating.
It's crazy, because just on the BBC, I mean, it just tells you everything that they need people to tell. They need to tell you how great they are.
Yeah.
And that's always a bit of a concern. If they're so great, you don't need to say anything. People will say you're great, but they need to tell you. They need to tell everyone how great they are and why you should pay the license fee. And like I say, just move to a subscription model. Let the people actually decide. They know deep down their stuff isn't great. They know that there's certainly people who are turning against them, but they don't have confidence in themselves to actually go down the subscription model, because I think they know that there's a lot of people whose salaries and whose jobs who are currently employed by the BBC, they won't exist if they go down the subscription model. They can't actually compete in a fair market. They've been so lucky to get away with what they've been able to get away with the last 10, 20 years of basically being a propaganda machine. So they are more and more fearful of the idea of a subscription model. It needs to happen. It should happen as soon as possible.
That's great. Well, Sunil, thank you very much indeed. I so agree with that last bit. They are fearful that actually at least half, probably 3/4 of the staff would go And I would guess that something like 20-25% would actually pay. They'd actually be better off, actually, but they don't want to do it. Lovely to speak to you, Sonia. We will speak again. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Right, quick, before our guest comes on, let's take up that point that you raised, which was that Apollo Live, or Apollo, totally dead now.
Yeah.
That
Live from the Apollo, yeah.
Live from the Apollo is going. Yeah. Okay. And lots of people were saying in here how sad that they are, and that it had created stars like, let's have a look.
McIntyre's one of them.
Yeah, but when you say created stars, these guys would have been stars anyway. All it was just another outlet for their talents, that's all.
It was a TV show. But ultimately, it was very funny at the beginning. And I don't think...
How long has it been going?
22 years.
Yeah.
I don't think we always want to see stars. I used to go to the comedy clubs locally all the time. I remember seeing Harry Hill very, very early on.
Funny?
Hilariously funny. I mean, absolutely hilariously
funny. If you're in a comedy club, quite a small one, and somebody hits the note, and he's got the audience, literally 60, 80 of you, in the palm of his hands, he literally can scratch his face and people roar.
And you know when someone is good, because you go at half time, you go to the loo and you're having a wee, and everyone's trying to do comedy because we're all in that mood, and it brings people together. What I'm finding with the comedy that they were doing ultimately was it was divisive. They weren't telling jokes. They weren't trying to make. They weren't telling the Kay Burley gag. You know, they were looking for claps. They were looking for making political points and getting an applause. So that to me is really divisive.
That is a very good line. That actually what they were looking for, they weren't looking for laughs. They were looking for applause. Yeah. Two totally different aspects,
Absolutely.
which is why we are going to do an 80s night at some stage. We're going to do an 80s night. We have a theatre in mind, and that people are going to tell gags as distinct from observational comedy. Now, we've got coming up now, I think we've got coming up Mike Padham. Yeah, hi, Mike. Mike Padham is chair of the Independent Care Group, and you're on Burnham's National Care Service, is that right?
Correct. Good morning, Kelvin.
Morning. Okay, so I come from a different side of this argument, and I had Charles Moore on, or Lord Moore, as I should call him, earlier, because he had written a piece in the Telegraph, which I agree with, which is saying that if you have the money, you should pay for your own care. And why is it that people who have the money won't, according to Burnham, he's going to drop the Denmark approach, which is effectively going to say it's going to be like the NHS. Well, we don't. There are many of us out here who don't want it to be like the NHS, right? That is the means of driving force in our life. We want a better service. But what's your argument about that particular argument about if the money's there, you should pay for it?
Well, I feel that even people with very little income are still going to have to pay for their care, and it's enormously expensive if they live a long time. I think it's a meet in the middle. I think more contribution from the state, but some private input as well is what we should be doing in the future.
When you say that, don't you get the impression, look, it may be that Burnham has gone out with the big 100%er. Do you think in the end then that it will come down and it'll be a much smaller start, or will it not start till 29 and be included in the manifesto?
Well, we need something today, as Dilnot mentioned many years ago. I think that we need to be quick, and I think moving some resources from the NHS, because I think the Prime Minister yesterday said it was costing £2.5 billion a year to keep people in hospital that actually medically fit to discharge. If we could move that into the community, it might not mean in the short term any more resources, which we're already paying, and people are better off in their own homes being cared for. So I would like to see that happen at a stroke of a pen. I think you could do that immediately without waiting further.
Okay, well, you say that, Mike, but at the same time, you've got the other political drive, which is that they've said that they don't want quotes private equity profiteering.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, where are those people coming out of the hospital going to go then? They're going to be left on the streets, or what's going to happen?
Well, I think that the issue is that private equity only represents a very small proportion of the market. I think it's only around about a fifth. Most of it is for small independent family-run organisations in England, and that's
Okay.
where I think that they have a big role to play. It's like comparing Starbucks with an independent coffee shop. There's lots of care with smaller businesses who are making vast profits. I think the government should use them more, and to change that model would require nationalisation. I don't think that would happen.
Oh, no, Mike, are you all right? Is everything gone all right? The last thing this country needs is national. Are you suggesting nationalisation?
No. I was saying
the
that's what many people call for. I think it was Jeremy Corbyn, the election before the last one, who suggested that. That couldn't happen. But the public need to realise that most of it is in the private sector. We can't change it. The private sector do a good job and should continue to do so.
Okay, fine. So, okay, if they do that, if the 2.5 million goes out of it and goes into the, I wouldn't be hostile to that. But we don't need to be talking about death taxes to do all that stuff. Why don't we just do that?
Well, that's what I'm hoping for will happen, because we want to see something tangible today. I am giving the new Prime Minister benefit of the doubt at the minute, but I have heard it before over many Prime Ministers that we're going to fix social care. But I would like to see him do something. I think that would be a good start to make things better in the short term. Long term, then we can have Baroness Casey coming with how we should be in the long term.
Okay, when you look at so we take the long term, which, if I'm to believe the Prime Minister, he is in, saying we need to do it and we need to do it as soon as possible, and I'm going to expend a lot of political capital and all that old tosh, right? When would you think that's likely to happen then? Because if we're going to follow the Denmark plan, that's 18, 19 billion. As far as I know, Mike, unless you're going to supply it personally from your own funds, we haven't actually got 19 pence, let alone 19 billion. So what on earth are we going to do to a country which has already got record taxation?
Well, I believe that 2.5 billion is a start. I think if we are keen about prevention and reducing reliance on the NHS, then some more money can come from that eventually. But I think an insurance product could come in where the private sector could provide that if the government had a cap on how much people had to pay. So I think there is a way forward. But my answer is, let Baroness Casey do a report. Let's move that money today and see what she says in a year's time and put something into place. But we need a quick fix now. He's done it for pubs. He's done it for fuel, energy, and why not social care as well? Right.
So you're promising me, Mike, I don't know you. You're a trusted man, right? Pooch speaks well of you, so that's not normally a great endorsement, to be honest. But if that 2.5 billion, right, that is not a cost to the nation then. That's not a cost to me. Nobody's going to come to me and say, Kel, you've got a fund. There is a gap between the 2.5 billion we saved on the NHS and the money going into private care. Is there going to be a gap there in which somebody comes to Pooch, for instance, who's doing quite well at the moment, is going through a good run, in which he's going to be asked to put his hand in his pocket?
That is money that we're already spending in the NHS, because I make the point, there's many people in hospital that don't need to be. They'd like to be out, but there's a bureaucracy in the middle and it's costing us more to keep them there. So quality of life and saving money is what I think we should do. But it can happen today without spending more, I believe.
Okay, fine. How is business in the independent care group, by the way?
Well, I'm in my 37th year of delivering social care now, so it's always been tough, but it's getting tougher because we're having to look after people who would have been in hospital many years ago, more dependent. There's a shortage of staff. The number of people needing care is growing, and I'm pleased people are living longer, of course, but it's a strain on the system. And I might just say that the national insurance hike by the previous government has made a huge difference, because many are part-time staff. So that's raised the barrier even more to us. So we are struggling. We were clapped during the pandemic for a good job we were doing. Now we seem to be left out on our own. But the country and the NHS would collapse from that perspective if social care collapses itself.
You say there's a shortage of staff. This seems to be coupled with the fact that there are a load of kids can't find work, right? I was listening to a 16-year-old yesterday I think she was working for a care company, and she was saying she really enjoyed it. She started there as literally a kind of pot washer come sandwich maker, and now she likes talking to the old dears and everything like that. Is it the fact that you don't pay enough? Isn't that the bottom line? These jobs don't pay enough, but at the same time you can't charge enough. Is that the issue?
Yes, and I think the Prime Minister yesterday said they should be paid more, not the worst payers. But the challenge is, if we did pay more, and I think we are going to be made to do that in the future with a fair pay agreement, which I support, by the way. But that means we have to put our charges up to local authorities, who then tell us they can't afford anything else. So that's why the government needs to fund something. But if it could do another thing as well as the 2.5 billion, is allow social care providers not to have that NI increase, would help us. Because one challenge the government doesn't realise sometimes, I don't think, is we cannot reclaim VAT. So we've got all the pressures of running a business, but no VAT to claim back, national insurance hikes, and we are delivering a public good after all.
You are satisfying a demand. That is for true. So you're saying that more people come into your care homes that in the old days would have gone into a hospital, which is a different view than the one that is being put forward by the government, isn't it?
Yes, I think many people many years ago they could look after themselves very well. It was just like a hotel. Nowadays, people are very dependent. So we're getting what would have been people in hospital years ago with us now, and that is challenging for the staff. We're short of nurses, so it's a difficult argument to make, but we're asked to deliver top level care for the lowest price possible, and unfortunately in that, staff do pay a price because we can't pay them much more than the national living wage. So we are very stretched, and care homes are going out of business.
What percentage? I know one of my neighbours had a very, very unwell mother, I think, and they were paying, I live in Weybridge, they were paying for one of the care homes to look after their mother, who has lasted for a good few years. They were paying just south of £100,000 a year. What percentage in the care homes that you run are people self-paying, right? i.e. they are writing the check, not the council, right? Is it like 10%, 15%, 20%, 5%? What is it?
In our own care home, we're getting less than 20% now, and that is dropping. And there's nothing illegal about this, but it's not morally right. But it's another problem for the government to tackle is private payers do subsidise the low cost of local authorities. But as the private payers are becoming less, then the strain goes back on local authorities because local authorities are trying to buy on behalf of private payers, so they don't have to come to local authority as quickly. But it's beginning to be very difficult. Most homes cannot operate just on local authorities' fees. That's the challenge. And we will have care deserts eventually, I think, where you can't get local authority care in some parts of England because providers won't just be there.
Bit like the situation with dentists, I would have thought, where you either pay. So get some insurance, start saving, less time down the betting shop and the boozer, right? And perhaps put aside some money for insurance and you'll be laughing. Not everybody's skint in our country. Mike, very good to talk to you. Actually, voice of reason there, actually. I thought for some bizarre reason, because I hadn't met you before, that you'd be some rather strange kind of lefty, but at least I would like to think, because we've tried with the Conservative government, the coalition and the Labour government to get some sense, because hopefully this one will listen, this person will listen, this new PM. But I'm always glass half full, but I believe it when I see it. That's the thing. I believe it when I see it with Burnham. I wouldn't trust a word he says. Thank you very much indeed. That's Mike Padham, Chair of the Independent Care Group. Well, I think one more thought process from you, Pooch, and then we'll go. Could not get a dentist during COVID. All of the, masks and this and that. And the old wisdom tooth. Took it out myself with some. Took it out with... Is that a joke? No, pair of mole grips. Right, show that. Show that. That is absolutely disgraceful. This is why he should have his own show. This is why I'm in the show. I would not do that.
Why?
There is something wrong with you.
I was in so much pain. So you've got to look at the pain pleasure. This is
why
everything.
you couldn't find a dentist because they wouldn't
do it. And
they wouldn't do anybody.
So a final thought on that. And listen, I've seen some of the comments, and I totally agree that people who have worked hard, they should be looked after. To a certain extent, yes, I think that if you've got money, then you should
that's
pay
my
for
main
something.
point.
I agree with that. But listen, when people were locked down, they were getting paid to sit at home. They were all promoting the fact that we should be locked down.
Yeah.
My argument was, so it's all right for you now to not work and have that, but you're happy for your grandchildren to pay for this.
Yeah.
People are short-sighted. That's the thing. You're not here tomorrow.
I'm not.
We've got Mark Littlewood and Paul Cox.
Oh, that would be good, actually. What, to do the show?
Do the show.
That would be good, actually.
So I thought I'd end with a joke, Kelvin.
A joke? Yeah, we like a joke.
So
there's
this party, and Tiger Woods is there. Stevie Wonder's there also.
Yeah.
So Tiger Woods makes a beeline for Stevie Wonder, and he says, "Listen, Mr. Wonder, I love your music. Massive fan. I've got Hotter Than July. I've got all your albums, songs in the key of life. Thank you very much," Stevie Wonder said. He says, "And I love you as a golfer. I thought you were the best. Fantastic." Shake hands. Tiger's just walking off, and Stevie Wonder says, "But I could beat you, by the way." Tiger turns around and says, "What? Yeah, I could beat you at golf." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm a fantastic golfer." He said, "But forgive me for stating the obvious, but you're blind. How can you play golf?" Stevie Wonder said, "It's all in the ears. It's the hearing." He said, "I'm there. I've got perfect timing, perfect hearing. My caddy puts a ball down, take a swing, bang, straight down the fairway. Beautiful long drive, always straight. Then same thing goes, I get a little pitching wedge, bang, straight onto the green, never too far." He said, "But how do you putt?" He said, "Well, I get set up, and then my caddy goes down by the hole, and he goes, 'Here's the hole, here's the hole.' And I putt, and I never miss." Tiger Woods goes, "Sounds ridiculous." Steve Wonder said, "Well, look, if you don't believe me, put your money where your mouth is."
Yeah.
Tiger Woods getting annoyed by now. He's got a bit of a temper. He said, "Okay, I bet you 50 grand I can beat you at golf." Steve Wonder said, "Fine." Tiger Woods said, "When would you like to play?" Steve Wonder said, "Any night next week suits me."
Actually, I like all those gags. Right, well done. That's Pooch. Weren't for Pooch, this would be a much duller show. Pooch should have his own show. This is Kelvin MacKenzie saying, see you on Monday. But there's a good one tomorrow. Mark Littlewood and
Paul Cox, the comedian.
Cox. Actually, a couple of comedians. Actually, Littlewood would not like to be described as a comedian. But no, he's a good guy. And Cox might be joining us on our 80s night of comedy. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Cheers.